I noticed the silverware trembling before I even registered her voice. A faint metallic shiver across the table just as my mother leaned in and said, "Avery, we only keep you around out of courtesy. Don't make the night longer than it needs to be." Jason chuckled into his whiskey. Brielle fixed her hair in her front camera. Heat crawled up my neck, but my fingers stayed still against Grandpa's ring. I stood, lifted my glass, and walked away. No one called my name, no one even blinked, but a few weeks later, they'd all be begging for my attention. Before I go any further, tell me where you're watching from, and hit like and subscribe if you've ever been dismissed by your own family. Because what happened next didn't just change my relationship with them, it changed the way I saw myself. If you're still here, let me take you back to where all of this truly began. I didn't grow up invisible, not at first. When I was 8, Grandpa Thomas woke me before sunrise at Lake Merrow and led me down the old wooden dock. The morning was cold enough to sting and the lake lay still and silver like a mirror waiting for the world to wake up. He placed a fishing rod in my hand, steadying my fingers with his own. "The lake reflects you if you're honest with it," he whispered. And for a moment, the world felt wide, quiet, and mine. I didn't know it yet, but that feeling would become something I'd spend most of my life chasing. Back home, everything was different. Our house always sounded busy, phones ringing, heels clicking across hardwood floors, Jason bragging about some achievement, Brielle posing for photos. But somehow the noise never included me. At dinner, my mother never looked up from her tablet. She plated Jason's food first, then Brielle's, discussing their schedules like she managed two prodigies. Then she'd glance at me last. "Avery, take a few bites. You look tired." No eye contact, no warmth, just an obligation. Jason smirked. Brielle took pictures, and I learned early how to quiet my breath so I wouldn't take up space. My 13th birthday was the clearest proof. I came downstairs to the smell of frosting, thinking for one hopeful second they'd remembered. But the cake was for Jason's soccer team. The house was full of people cheering for him. My mother waved at me across the kitchen, shouting, "Happy birthday, sweetheart. Grab a slice, not one candle, not one card. Just a leftover piece of a celebration that wasn't mine." That night, Grandpa took me to the old diner with the flickering neon sign. He slid a small velvet box across the table, a ring. "So you remember who you are," he said. Back then I didn't realize he was preparing me for a world that would constantly try to overwrite me. As I got older, the favoritism sharpened. When I won a school award at 15, my parents didn't come to the ceremony. They texted, "Proud of you," the generic kind you send when you forgot but want to look supportive. Later that afternoon, they posted photos from Jason's game, all smiling like the universe revolved around him, and I swallowed it. I didn't know then that every swallowed moment was stacking inside me like stones. At 17, I earned a scholarship, a big one, the kind guidance counselors celebrate. I brought the letter to my mother, hoping stupidly that this time would be different. She skimmed it and handed it back. "Lucky break," she said. "Don't waste it." The words hit harder than she knew, not because they were cruel, but because they were effortless, like diminishing me was second nature. Still, I held on to Grandpa's lake, to the dock, to the ring, to the idea that somewhere in my life I mattered. What I didn't see was that the cabin, the one place that felt like mine, was already becoming something else in my family's eyes. Not a memory, not a legacy, a resource. And resources to them existed to be used. By 19, the shift was obvious, not subtle, not imagined. The cabin hadn't changed, but the way my family treated it had. On paper, it still belonged to me. But in every conversation, I wasn't included in every plan made without my name. It had quietly transformed into the family cabin. A phrase that tasted wrong every time I heard it. One afternoon, I came home carrying groceries when I overheard Brielle in the living room, voice sugar-sweet and loud enough to reach the hallway. "I'm filming a Summer at Merrow series," she said. "The dock is so aesthetic. I might shoot the sunrise, maybe some cozy shots in the master bedroom." Elaine didn't even hesitate. "Use whatever room has the best light." My keys hung from my backpack. No one asked. No one cared. Jason walked in next, grabbed chips out of one of my grocery bags and said, "Hey Avery, can you skip the cabin this weekend? We told the Lamberts they could borrow it." "Dad said you'd get it." "My cabin?" I asked. Jason snorted. "Relax. They'll treat it better than you." He didn't stay long enough to see how hard my hand clenched around the keys, but the deepest cut came when Brielle's vlog went viral. She titled it, "My Favorite Childhood Place." The thumbnail showed her wrapped in a blanket on the porch at sunrise, the same porch where Grandpa once told me I was stronger than I believed. She filmed every corner of the cabin, the dock, the cedar chest, even Grandpa's old flannel shirt draped over a chair like a prop. She never said my name, not once. For 12 minutes, I watched my entire childhood be repurposed into content for people who didn't know the truth. And when she described Lake Merrow as our generational home, something inside me cracked, not loud, not dramatic, but sharp enough to change the shape of everything after. I didn't confront her, I didn't text, I didn't say a word, but it stayed with me. The next warning arrived during winter break. I went home and noticed the hallway photos had changed. New frames, new memories, cabin summers, holiday mornings, lake days, all with Jason and Brielle front and center. I leaned in closer, staring at a picture on the dock. Jason holding a fish, Brielle laughing, my parents smiling behind them. I remembered being there that day. I remembered standing just out of frame. That wasn't an accident. Another small cut. Another swallow. But then came the moment I should have understood sooner, a property tax statement addressed to me, already paid by an account with my name on it, that I hadn't opened. I called Harris Cole that night. "Is this normal?" I asked. He hesitated. A long, uncomfortable pause. "It's standard," he said. "Nothing to stress about." The pause told me everything he didn't. I didn't know it then, but that single hesitation was the sound of something shifting beneath my feet, the beginning of the end. The first tremor before the ground finally split open. All the small cuts, all the swallowed moments, they were no longer just memories. They were clues. And soon they were about to form a pattern too big to ignore. The unraveling began on a quiet weeknight when I was sitting at my kitchen table finishing a client report. My phone lit up with a preview from a group chat I'd never been added to Monroe Summer 24 planning. My pulse ticked in my throat. I opened the preview just long enough to see lines of messages flying back and forth, photos, voice notes, links to new furniture, all about my cabin. Then one message froze me. "We'll use Avery's key if she remembers to drop it off." Not invite Avery, not check with Avery, just use her key. They weren't even pretending anymore. I wasn't a person, I was access. My fingers curled around Grandpa's ring metal, warming against my skin. More messages came. "Jason. If she's not coming, can we rebuild the dock this year? The Lamberts want a boathouse." Boathouse. On the dock Grandpa built with his hands. I scrolled further. A voice note from Brielle played automatically, her tone bright and weightless. "I'm picturing a sunrise coffee scene on the dock. If we extended a few feet, I could get a cleaner shot. And maybe a glass railing. Something minimal and chic. Minimal and chic. For a place their memories never built." A strange coldness settled in my chest, like something inside me refusing finally to shrink any further. I set the phone down. The screen dimmed, but the words stayed. 2 days later, the bank email arrived. "Your joint account update is ready." I frowned. I didn't have a joint account. Curiosity slid into dread the moment I logged in. My legal name was attached to an account I had never seen before. Property tax, autopay, cabin insurance, maintenance fees. All processed for years. My hands went cold. I clicked deeper, opening old statements. I saw charges tied to seasons I hadn't even been at the cabin. Payments approved under an unfamiliar signature. Addresses that weren't mine. A whole financial life created using my name, but not my consent. I stared at the laptop until the words blurred. Then I grabbed my coat and walked to the downtown bank branch, needing to see something real. People stood in line, holding deposit slips, chatting, scrolling their phones like everything made sense. I felt like I was watching the world from underwater. I wasn't the responsible one in their eyes because they respected me. I was the responsible one because I was easy to exploit. I walked home slower than usual. Each block felt heavier, as if gravity had learned my name. That night, I dug through my old folders, the ones I kept out of instinct. Somewhere inside me, a memory stirred, Grandpa telling me to keep everything. I didn't understand him then. I understood him now. Halfway through the stack, I found a scanned document labeled Authorization of Property Use. I opened it. My stomach dropped. My name printed, my signature at the bottom. Except, not my signature. Not even close. Sharper angles, wrong slant, wrong pressure. A stranger's attempt at becoming me. But what made my blood run cold was the seal on the right corner. Notarized by Harris Cole, the family lawyer. The man who told me don't worry. The ringing in my ears was instant and loud. I couldn't tell if it was anger or grief or both tangled together. Why would he notarize a forgery? Because he didn't think I'd ever check. Because in my family, the easiest person to erase was always me. I laid the paper on the table and tapped my pen twice, my decision clicking into place. This wasn't confusion anymore. This wasn't oversight. This was exploitation wrapped in trust. And I felt something inside me shift, slow, deliberate, irreversible. The part of me that stayed silent. She wasn't here anymore. The morning after I uncovered the forged document, sleep felt pointless. I kept replaying Harris's seal stamped over handwriting that wasn't mine. I poured coffee, but my grip was so tight the ceramic creaked. The apartment sat in its usual hush, but it felt different now, like the quiet had finally picked a side, and for once, it wasn't theirs. Around noon, I drove to the old diner Grandpa used to take me to. The neon sign buzzed overhead, flickering a pale blue against the winter sky. The waitress, who'd known me since childhood, slid a menu across the table and said, "Rough morning." "You could say that," I murmured. I took Grandpa's ring off and set it on the table. Its weight steadied me. Maybe he knew someday I'd sit here needing a reminder. Maybe that's why he'd given it to me, to tether me to the truth when reality felt manipulated beyond recognition. By the time I finished my coffee, the decision had already taken shape. I needed answers, real ones, not the Monroe-approved versions. That night, I packed a small bag, grabbed my keys, and drove 2 hours to Lake Merrill. The highway was empty, the fog low enough to skim the hood of my car. My chest tightened, not from fear, but from clarity rising, like everything inside me was caught between who I had been and who I was about to become. The cabin greeted me in a way my family never did. The porch light flickered once like a quiet nod. Inside, the air smelled like cedar and dust, a scent that felt like truth instead of performance. Every floorboard creak, every shadowed corner carried pieces of Grandpa I didn't realize I'd been missing. I went upstairs, pulled down the attic ladder, and climbed into the dusty space. The cedar chest waited exactly where it had always been. When I lifted the lid, the familiar smell hit me. Wood Lake water memories. But something was different this time. A seam in the lining. Almost invisible. I pressed it. It lifted. A hidden pocket. Inside an envelope. My name written in Grandpa's unmistakable handwriting. My hands trembled as I opened it. Avery. If you're reading this, trust your instincts. Keep every document. Keep your accounts separate. Keep the cabin safe, not as shelter but as leverage. They will try to take what isn't theirs. Leverage. Not sanctuary. Leverage. Grandpa knew. He'd known all along. But there was more. A photocopy of the deed, and a final line scribbled beneath. There are other assets they don't know about. If things ever turn, don't go to Harris. Find someone who sees you. It felt like the floor beneath me locked into place. Every swallowed moment, every quiet dismissal, every cropped photo, it wasn't random, it was a pattern. One Grandpa had predicted years before I understood the shape of it. The next morning I left the cabin with the letter zipped in my bag. The lake was silver and still reflecting the first hint of sunlight. For the first time, the mirror image didn't feel distorted. It felt like recognition. When I got home, my phone was lit up with notifications. Jason. Did you change the lock code? Elaine. We need to talk immediately, Brielle. Why is there a for sale sign at Marrow? Panic, shock, confusion, all of it finally aimed in the right direction. And then came the knock on my door, hard, sharp, too familiar. When I opened it, there stood Harris Cole, face pale, hair slightly disheveled, sweat beading near his temple. Avery, he said quietly, we need to discuss a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding. That word again. I stepped aside. Get inside, I said. My voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. He walked in like he was entering a courtroom, not an apartment. And for the first time, someone from my family's orbit looked unsettled in front of me. They all thought I'd stay silent, that I'd accept whatever story they wrote for me. But the part of me that swallowed everything, she didn't live here anymore. Harris sat at my kitchen table like he wasn't sure whether to speak or bolt. The leather of his briefcase creaked every time he adjusted his grip, and the blinds behind him cast thin, sharp stripes across his face. He looked smaller than I remembered, less confident, more exposed. I placed the forged document in front of him, the fake version of my name staring up like a threat. You notarized this, I said. He swallowed. Avery. Your parents assured me. Look at it. My voice didn't move above a whisper, but it hit like a strike. He stared at the signature. The wrong pressure. The wrong slant. The wrong everything. Silence stretched thin until a heavy, violent knock broke through it. Harris straightened instantly. That's your father. I already knew. Richard Monroe filled the doorway, face red, breathing hard, clutching a stack of papers and his phone like weapons. Avery, he snapped, we're talking. Now. He stormed inside without waiting for permission and slammed the papers onto the table beside the forged authorization. His hand shook once before he steadied it. Tell me you didn't sell the cabin. I held his stare. I did. He blinked. Once. Twice. A glitch in his certainty. You don't understand the consequences, he said, voice rising. You have no idea what you've done. You're right, I said quietly. I didn't understand. Not until I saw the accounts you opened under my name, the taxes you tied to me. And this. I tapped the forgery. Your family lawyer signing off on a fake version of your daughter. Richard's jaw tightened. His gaze flicked to Harris, who looked like he might fold into the chair. You think this, he gestured vaguely angrily, is how you protect family? I slid another paper across the table. Grandpa's letter. His handwriting. His warning. Richard froze mid-breath. He knew, I said. He knew what you'd try to do. He didn't trust you with the cabin. He trusted me. Richard stared at the letter like it had personally betrayed him. This doesn't change anything. That property was supposed to stay in the family. It did, I said. Just not yours. He leaned forward, lowering his voice. Avery, listen. The resort expansion is going to triple the land value. If you transfer the sale proceeds to us, your mother and I can fix this. I laughed. A short, cold sound that made both men flinch. I'm not signing anything. Ever again. The coffee machine clicked off behind me, one final drip, punctuating the moment. Richard's face shifted from anger to something I'd never seen on him before. Fear. I reached for the final document in the folder, Dan's formal email printed clean and crisp. Every closed account. Every unauthorized charge. Every forged signature. Sent to my parents. Sent to Harris. Logged. Permanent. Richard read it, color draining slowly from his face like someone pulling a plug in a sink. Harris rubbed his temples, muttering something about liability and legal exposure. I stood. For years you all counted on me being quiet, being the one who wouldn't push back. You used my name because you thought I wouldn't notice or wouldn't matter. I paused. But you were wrong. Richard didn't respond. He didn't argue. He just rose from the chair with stiff movements like gravity had doubled around him. He walked toward the door without looking back. When it clicked shut, the apartment didn't feel empty. It felt reclaimed. I twisted Grandpa's ring once, feeling the metal warm beneath my skin, and let a small, steady smile settle on my face. Not out of victory, not out of spite, out of certainty. The morning after my father walked out, the apartment felt different. Lighter, sharper, like the air finally belonged to me. I moved slowly through the quiet, pouring coffee into my chipped mug and letting the warmth settle into my hands. Outside, the city hummed cars, footsteps, the low groan of a bus engine. Ordinary noise. Noise that didn't demand anything from me. My phone buzzed on the counter. Once, twice, then non-stop. Elaine Avery. Please call me. Jason. We need to talk. You can't just disappear. Brielle. Did you seriously sell the cabin? Their messages stacked on top of each other like frantic echoes. I didn't touch the phone. Not because I wanted to hurt them, but because for the first time I wasn't required to respond. I opened my laptop instead. There was an email from Dan waiting. Funds cleared, sale finalized, buyer satisfied. Let me know when you're ready for the next step. The next step. Those 3 words lingered. I clicked open the folder where I'd stored Grandpa's hidden letter. The edges were worn from how many times I'd read it now, but the message hadn't changed. Keep what's yours, and trust your instincts. My instincts told me something was still unfinished. As if on cue, my phone vibrated again, this time with a different tone. A notification from an unknown number. It was from Harris. I've stepped down from managing the Monroe estate. Official notice coming soon. I'm sorry for my part in this. I stared at the message for a long moment. His apology didn't fix anything, but it confirmed something I already sensed. The structure my parents had built, the one held together by forged signatures, charm and control, was cracking beneath its own weight. And I didn't have to push. I just had to step back. I closed my laptop and turned Grandpa's ring around my finger, feeling the groove settle perfectly into place. I wasn't planning revenge. I wasn't plotting destruction. I was simply reclaiming the parts of my life they thought they owned. And somewhere beneath the calm, beneath the morning light spilling across my kitchen floor, I could feel it. This wasn't the end. Not by a long shot. If you've ever felt like the outsider in your own family, you know how heavy that silence can get. But choosing yourself, finally choosing yourself, changes everything. Your voice, your boundaries, your future. So if this story hit something familiar, if you've lived any part of it, or you're still trying to break out of it, you're not alone. Share your story in the comments, hit like, subscribe, because trust me, this kind of story doesn't end in one chapter, and neither does yours.